Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Usual Rules, a Novel, by Joyce Maynard, narrated by Amanda Friday. It's difficult, in times like these. Ideals, dreams, and cherished hopes rise within us, only to be crushed by grim reality. It's a wonder I haven't abandoned all my ideals. They seem so absurd and impractical, yet I cling to them because I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. It's utterly impossible for me to build my life on a foundation of chaos, suffering, and death. I see the world being slowly transformed into a wilderness. I hear the approaching thunder that, one day, will destroy us too. I feel the suffering of millions, and yet, when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better, that this cruelty too will end, that peace and tranquility will return once more. Anne Frank, in her diary, July 15, 1944. It was a story Wendy knew well. How she got her name. "Your dad wanted to call you Sierra," her mother would begin, "because you were conceived in the Sierra Mountains on a camping trip. Trout fishing, naturally. But ever since I was a little girl, I always said, if I had a daughter, I'd call her Wendy." Her mother loved musicals, the big old-fashioned kind. Growing up in Cedar Falls, the only time she ever saw a show was the annual Lions Club production. But one time, they had the real Broadway version of Peter Pan on TV, with the actress Mary Martin playing Peter. Having a woman play Peter wasn't as strange as you'd think, because she was skinny and her hair was cut short like a boy. This was way back. Wendy's mother, Janet, was only 5 years old at the time. She herself had been named after a singer on her parents' favorite show, Lawrence Welk, one of the Lennon sisters. But even back then, she knew she wasn't a Lawrence Welk type. She was going to be a Broadway dancer. She wanted to play Peter Pan herself. Someday that was going to be her, flying over the audience, dancing with the Lost Boys, singing "I've Got a Crow." Her hair was long, but she'd cut it. She got to New York on a bus when she was 18 years old. Back home, she'd done some typing for her father's insurance office. With the money she'd saved, she rented a room in the Barbizon Hotel, which catered to young women who came to New York City from places like Missouri. She went to auditions, but in the meantime, she got a job as a waitress at a chock-full-o'-nuts restaurant, and a second job, nights, as something called a peachy puff girl, selling cigarettes and candy bars at clubs in a little outfit that was basically a bathing suit, with a few ruffles on the bottom. That was where she met her friend Kate. The two of them saved up their money so they could buy tickets to shows. She went without food sometimes, but never musicals. Janet was a wonderful dancer. They always told her that. But not being able to carry a tune, she was out of the running for featured roles, if any singing was involved. Her big break was getting to be an understudy in a chorus line. Not for any of the main parts, but when one of the dancers in the company couldn't go on, Janet did. The problem was, she got this look on her face when she danced. Hard as she tried, she couldn't change. "It's fine to be happy," a casting director told her once. "But you keep giving me rapture, and that's a little much. The audience is meant to be looking at the featured performers," another director told her once. "When you're dancing, we end up watching you." "I'll try not to stand out so much," she said. "I don't think you can help it," he told her. The closest she ever got to an actual role was final callbacks for Princess Tiger Lily in a road company revival of Peter Pan. Not Mary Martin anymore. "I think this time I'm going to get it," she had told her mother when she called with the news. The next day, running across the street on her way to the theater, her last audition, when it was down to just a handful of dancers, a bicycle messenger ran into her. She knew the minute she hit the ground that it was bad. She sat on the curb, on the corner of 44th Street and 8th Avenue, crying. A man came out of a stage door carrying a bunch of tools, a set builder.
"Hey,"
he said.
"You look like you could use a cup of coffee."
That was Garrett. He was working as a carpenter, but he was really an artist. He took her out for dim sum that night. He was very handsome, in a way that made her think of Billy Bigelow in Carousel. As soon as her ankle was better, they danced together in his loft. East Coast swing. They fell in love. He painted her. A few months later, he took her cross-country in his truck, camping mostly, and stopping along the way at places where the fishing was good. He loved to fish, and she actually liked tying flies, or thought she did. She was that much in love. By then, she had started to wonder if it really was what she wanted most, to tap dance in the back row now and then, nights when somebody in the company called in sick, living in her little one-room apartment, eating her soup alone. She was 26 years old. A whole new crop of terrific dancers landed in New York every year, also wanting to dance on Broadway. They were younger than she was, with the kind of fierce ambition she used to have when she first got to New York. The pregnancy, discovered a few days after they returned from their camping trip, came as a surprise, but not bad news.
"What do you say we get married?"
Garrett had said. From the beginning, Janet had understood that Garrett was something of a Peter Pan type himself, but she had a weakness for lost boys. Even a hit show would close eventually. A tour would end. A marriage and a baby ran forever. That was the hope, anyway. "I didn't even have a boy's name picked out," her mother told her. "I was so sure you were going to be a girl." Wendy, the oldest of the children Peter took with him to Neverland, the sensible one, but full of spunk, the one who kept things together for everyone. Things had been rough in Neverland for Wendy and her two brothers, and the other lost boys. They hardly remembered their own mothers. They'd been gone so long. So it was Wendy who took care of them. She did things like mend their shirts, but she also told them stories.
"I'd do that too,"
Wendy told her mother when they got to this part.
"If I had a brother, I'd take the best care of him."
Some people might have gotten fed up with a person like Peter Pan. He was so irresponsible. But Wendy was patient. She loved him for the good parts and forgave the rest. Even though she was this sensible, motherly type person, there was another side to Wendy. She was an adventurer. She was brave, even when she was captured by the pirates. At the darkest moments, she never gave up hope. Many times when she was little, Wendy and her mother had rented the video of Mary Martin playing Peter Pan. When it got to the place where Peter asked everyone to close their eyes and think hard if they believed in fairies, to keep Tinker Bell from dying, Wendy had done it.
"Yes, I believe,"
she called out to the television set.
"I really do."
Of course, everything had turned out all right in the end. That was one of the other great things about musicals, her mother said. The happy endings. Part 1. New York. 1. 6:15. In 10 minutes, Wendy would have to get in the shower. Her clock radio came on. A newsman was talking about the elections for mayor of New York City. She switched to music. Madonna. She went through her new school clothes in her head, thinking up combinations. Her mother said the great thing about the gray pants was how you could wear them with anything. But when she wore them yesterday, she'd felt as if she was playing dress-up. Nobody else in 8th grade had pants like that. She wished she'd gotten the purple and green plaid kilt instead, that her mother said was impractical. Her mom, who owned 3 different colored feather boas and red velvet harem pants, a leopard print catsuit, and a tutu, not to mention all of her old Peachy Puffs get-ups. "Those pants really flatter your figure," her mother said when she put them on yesterday. "Do you think I'm fat?" Wendy said. Her mother was a size 4, and they could share clothes now. But Wendy could tell that before long, her clothes would be bigger than her mother's. Of course not. All I meant was they make you look even slimmer than usual. I'm fat, aren't I? Wendy told her. You've got a perfect body. Much nicer than if you were one of those stick figure types. I always wished I had a shape. In other words, I'm chunky, said Wendy. You look just right, her mother said. Your bones are bigger, that's all. Louis opened the door part way, just enough that she could see a corner of his face, eyes crusty, thumb in mouth. Are you dry? He told her yes. Positive?
There's just this one little drip, but it got soaked up in my sleeper suit, so it doesn't count.
He stood there holding Pablo, with the old blue ribbon from when Pablo was new wrapped around his thumb. He liked to twirl the tip of the ribbon in his ear with his free hand, while he sucked on the thumb of his other hand. Just don't get any pee on me, she said. He positioned himself in the bed, so every inch of the side closest to Wendy was touching some part of her. She could hear the slurping sound his lips made on his thumb, and his breathing, slow and quiet, still labored from last week's cold.
1, 2, 3, 4.
He was counting the rabbits on her pajama bottoms, though after 12 or 13, he usually gave up.
I dreamed we got a puppy,
he said. The two of them had been after their parents about that forever. What kind?
With spots, little and fuzzy. Are you going to school again today?
He said. I already explained to you, Louie. I go to school every day now, except Saturday and Sunday. 5 days in a row, school, and 2 days home. Only probably a lot of times I'll be sleeping over at Amelia's Friday nights.
I want you to stay home with me,
he said. She could hear the shower running in the room next to hers. She called it her parents' bathroom, even though Josh wasn't her real father, only Louis. It was easier. Plus, he seemed more like her father than her real one. You'll be going to school too, pretty soon anyway, she told him. Thursday is preschool orientation, remember? You might want to work on not sucking your thumb so much. The other kids might make fun of you.
I changed my mind,
he said.
I don't want to go to preschool after all. I want to stay home and play with you.
Well, I'm not going to be home, she said. And even if I was, I probably wouldn't play that much.
Why?
I'm not in that stage anymore. Once you get to my stage in life, you want to do different kinds of things.
What?
Josh was making French toast. The kitchen smelled of just ground coffee beans and frying butter. He was playing the Teach Yourself Spanish tape. Part 1 of her mother's birthday present last month. Part 2 was the trip to Mexico, scheduled for next spring, when Wendy was going to stay at Amelia's, or possibly go to California to visit her real dad. But she wasn't supposed to count on this. It had been nearly 3 years since she'd seen him. Her mother had said they couldn't afford a trip to Mexico, but Josh told her she worried too much.
6 months from now, I could get hit by a bus,
he said.
And boy, would you ever wish you'd gone on that trip.
The coffee pot made the sound that meant the coffee was ready. Josh poured himself a cup of coffee. Louis hopped in on one foot. He had taken off his cape now and replaced it with the cummerbund from his Aladdin costume. All week he'd been working on his skipping, and now he was circling the table, making little frog jumps. He hadn't figured out yet how to alternate his feet.
Hola, muchacho,
said Josh.
Blabby blah blah,
Louis said.
Where's my cereal?
Josh had already poured it.
At your servicio, señor.
The voice on the tape was reviewing yesterday's lesson.
¿Dónde está la estación central de autobús?
He repeated. Wendy studied Josh's face as he stood at the stove, holding the spatula like it was a microphone. His hair was going in all different directions. He hadn't shaved yet, and he was wearing the same old green sweatpants and his Yankees t-shirt from last summer's Subway series. He wasn't handsome like her father, and he didn't have her father's six-pack that made Amelia call him a hunk when she saw his picture. Josh had curly black hair and the kind of face you'd like to see if you had a problem.
Powdered sugar on yours, miss?
He asked. He set down a pitcher of maple syrup in front of her. Heated. She had told herself she was going to cut calories today, but now she poured a pool of syrup on her plate. "Mom up yet?"
"She's a little tired this morning,"
he said.
"I told her she should call in sick, but she said she'd just skip breakfast instead and take a later train."
"She was supposed to fill in my field trip permission forms and the one about who to contact in an emergency," Wendy told him. "My homeroom teacher said not to leave it to the last day. Also, I wanted to talk to her about my clarinet. They gave me a really crummy rental. I was thinking maybe we could buy one instead." It wasn't the permission forms that were making the sharp sound in her voice, she knew, or the clarinet either. She was thinking about the argument they'd had last night, about her going to California. She wanted to visit her father. Her mother had said, "That's crazy. School just started." "You never let me do anything," Wendy had told her. As usual, Josh tried to make peace.
"We'll talk about the clarinet tonight," he said. "Meanwhile, I'll sign the forms. Let your mom have an extra 10 minutes sleep."
"It's supposed to be filled out by a parent," Wendy told him. For a second, Josh got a look on his face that reminded her of Louie when he stood at the bus with her that first morning she went off to junior high.
"What do you say we give it a try this once?"
he said, reaching for the form.
"Father or no father, if you get injured in some knockdown, drag-out volleyball game, I'm probably the one who'll come running down to school to get you."
Watching Josh as he took out the jar of raisins, arranging them on Louie's plate in the shape of a man, Wendy felt crummy for saying what she had. "Do you have any idea how lucky we are to have someone like Josh in our life?" her mom said to her, times when Wendy treated him the way she knew she had just now. "Do you even remember what it was like before he came along? Do you think Garrett would ever put himself out for you the way Josh does?" "No." "I don't know why I say the mean things I do," she told Amelia. "My parents are just getting on my nerves so much lately. Sometimes these horrible remarks ooze out of me." "Maybe you're possessed," Amelia said. "We could perform an exorcism." Amelia had seen a video recently where that happened to a girl, and when they finally held the exorcism ceremony, all this horrible green vomit squirted out of her mouth, and her head swiveled around like a cartoon character. On TV, the weatherman was pointing to a map of New York and saying it looked like perfect weather clear through the weekend.
"Better grab yourself one last dose of summer, folks. No excuse not to get out and vote today."
Josh had been making her a sandwich. Now he was packing an apple in her lunch bag. "You got Macintosh," she said. "I like Granny Smith, remember?" "I didn't want raisins," Louie told Josh. "I wanted chocolate chips."
"We don't have chocolate for breakfast, Lou man," Josh told him. "As for you, Miss Picky, the Granny Smiths at the market weren't any good."
"But Sissy gets hot chocolate,"
Louie said.
"That's chocolate, just not in the shape of a chip."
"Tell you what, son," Josh said. "You eat the raisins, and tonight we'll make ourselves some chocolate chip cookies. Maybe you can bring in a few extra on Thursday for you know what."
"I want Mama to come too when I go to preschool,"
said Louie.
"Mama wouldn't miss it," Josh said. "That's why she decided not to take the day off today, so she could be there with you Thursday."
Back when her mother first introduced her to Josh, she meant to hate him. She was only 7 then. She'd seen a video at Amelia's house around that time called Parent Trap, where a couple of twins whose parents were divorced decided to get them back together, and it worked. Even though Wendy didn't have a twin like the girls in the movie, that was her plan. She was mean to him that first night at the restaurant. She didn't order anything except water, even though sushi was her favorite.
"I was just wondering,"
Josh said to her as she sat there, not even touching the soybeans that she loved.
"What is your opinion on miniature golf?"
She had never been miniature golfing, but she always wanted to. There was a course called Dreamland they sometimes passed on their way to Fire Island that her mom said they'd stop at someday, but they never had. Josh took them there, and after that, when Wendy's mother said it wasn't really her type of activity, it got to be something he and Wendy did, on Saturday afternoons when her mom and Kate went to yoga. They were at Dreamland when he told her about wanting to get married to her mom.
"I could understand if you aren't too thrilled,"
he said.
"I know you've got a dad, and it's understandable that you'd like it a whole lot better if he was with your mother instead of me. But I promise I'll try hard to make her happy, and I'll teach you every single thing you ever wanted to know about jazz."
Which was nothing. She was the flower girl. All that day, she kept thinking about the Parent Trap video and waiting for her real father to come crashing in and say something like,
"Janet, it was all a terrible mistake. Come back to me. What are you doing hanging around with this chubby guy with hair on his shoulders and love handles when you could be with me?"
Even after it was all over, and Josh's mom was hugging her, and she had on so much perfume Wendy could hardly breathe, and saying how she'd always wished she had a granddaughter. Even then, Wendy kept expecting something to happen that would make him disappear. But the next thing she knew, Josh was moving his clothes into her mother's room and building a bunch of shelves for his collection of old jazz LPs. Sometimes at night, she could hear them having sex. Josh was a stand-up bass player. He worked weekends mostly, usually Friday and Saturday nights, and sometimes he'd get hired to play at a wedding. But he was usually home during the day, except when he gave lessons. He loved to cook, and instead of takeout Chinese and pizza, he made them things like eggplant parmigiana and roast chicken with garlic mashed potatoes. One day he found a box of Duncan Hines brownie mix in their cupboard. He took it into the living room, where Wendy and her mother were watching a video of The Music Man.
"Janet,"
he said, in a voice that was so serious, Wendy actually worried he was mad. She'd never heard him get mad before. She was surprised at how scary it was, hearing someone who's always nice to you sound angry all of a sudden. Not like her father, who she could remember sounding mad, even though she'd been so little when he left. Now Josh was holding the box of Duncan Hines in front of her mother, like evidence.
"I hope and pray this is the last time an item like this ever makes its way into our kitchen. Just tell me it was temporary insanity."
"I bought that a long time ago," her mother said. "I didn't think I'd ever know anyone who could make us brownies from scratch. I swear I'll never in my whole life buy another box of Duncan Hines." Then Wendy knew it was a joke, because the look on her mother's face was like some character in a soap opera whose husband just found out she was in love with someone else. When she said that, he put his arms around her and made a sound like a bear in the forest, a low, happy growling noise, as if he'd just found a tree stump full of the sweetest honey deep in the underbrush. Something about the way the two of them looked at each other like that made it seem as if they were the only two people in the world. It was Josh, not her mother, who seemed to know Wendy was feeling that way, because he looked up at her then.
"Knowing your mother's talents in the kitchen,"
he said,
"I can tell the only hope I'll ever have of handing down my secret, time-tested brownie recipe is if I teach it to you."
Wendy and Josh melted the chocolate over the double boiler. You melted the butter in with the chocolate.
"Butter, never margarine,"
he told her. He showed her how to sift flour and beat the eggs with the sugar till they made a golden-colored froth, and he let her be the one to pour the melted chocolate mixture into the eggs, very slowly, so at first it was part dark brown, part creamy yellow swirls, until gradually the chocolate was all mixed in, then the flour.
"Now for the most important part,"
he said. "Putting it in the oven?"
"Oh my God,"
he said.
"You have even more to learn than I thought."
He reached for a package of pecans and poured a bunch into a plastic sandwich bag. He took out his big wooden rolling pin. Josh didn't come with much stuff when he moved in with them. A box of clothes, his string bass, a picture of himself with his sister and his parents when he was around 9, and a stuffed rabbit, also from when he was little. Not a whole lot else, but the rolling pin was his. Wendy's mom never owned one before.
"Let's say there's this boy in your class who keeps getting on your nerves, making fart sounds when the teacher isn't looking," he said. "Do you know anyone like that?" The thing was, she did. Or some girl who tells you she isn't going to invite you to her birthday party, and even though she's a major jerk, you really wanted to go, because everyone else in your class was going to be there. This also had happened. "Here's what you do about it," he said. He held the rolling pin over the bag of pecans. He smashed it down with surprising force on the bag of nuts. Not so hard the bag broke, just hard enough to crush the nuts. "That one's for all the boys who make fart sounds," he said. "This one's for snobby girls who won't invite you to their dumb party." Wendy watched him for a minute. Then he handed her the rolling pin. "Your turn," he said. It took her a second to get it.
"Mrs. Kempner, my gym teacher," she said, "who never picks me for dodgeball."
Wendy smashed the rolling pin down on the nuts.
"People who are cruel to animals," she said. "People who litter. People who sit down on the seats on the bus that are supposed to go to handicapped people and senior citizens. Mom's boss that makes her stay late all the time. People who give you dirty looks when you go into a store with breakable things just because you're a kid."
The nuts were crushed enough by this time, but the two of them kept thinking up more reasons to bang the rolling pin. "What's going on in there, you two?" asked her mother. "It's not something you'd understand, Jan," he told her. "It's one of those things only brownie bakers appreciate." In the kitchen now, Josh was saying the days of the week in Spanish, but instead of saying them, he was singing, like some performer on one of his old jazz albums. He had Louie's spoon in one hand, and he was beating out a rhythm on the counter. Wendy wanted another piece of French toast, but she didn't let herself reach for it. She poured herself a glass of water. "Nice-looking outfit," he said when he finally sat down with his coffee. "That's one of the new ones you and your mom got at Macy's, right?" She had changed 3 times this morning. In the end, what she put on was her old standby from last year, a denim skirt and a sweater. Standing in front of the mirror, she had decided she would give up bread, bagels, and granola bars until she lost 10 pounds. There were so many skinny girls in her class now. She weighed 111 pounds, the heaviest she'd ever been.
"I bet you're the prettiest one at your whole school,"
said Louie, patting her hair. "I definitely am not," she told him.
"Anyway, how would you know? You've never even been to my school." "I have superpowers."
She looked at the clock. Felix the cat, with the tail that swung in time with the seconds.
"Oh, God, it's 7:05,
she said. "Why don't you stick your head in the bedroom and say goodbye to your mom?" Josh said.
"I'm late already,"
she told him. She picked up her backpack and her clarinet case.
"I'm going over to Amelia's after school. Tell Mom to wear the new dress,"
she called from the stairs. Wendy had been best friends with Amelia since 1st grade. In 3rd grade, they'd tied their desks together until the teacher made them cut the string. They had invented a language nobody else understood. Later, they made up all kinds of other things, too, like saying Bloody Mary 10 times very fast for good luck, and daring each other to give the cutest boy on their subway train a blue M&M right before they got off at their stop. Mostly, it was Amelia who thought up the stuff, and Wendy who went along with it, like when she propped up a picture of Josh's father, who was dead, and they stared at it for 20 minutes without taking their eyes off one time.
"Wait and see. His lips are going to move,"
she said, and after a long time, Wendy said, "Oh my God, you're actually right." Last year, when Amelia's family got their new apartment in Brooklyn Heights, it felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to Wendy. This morning, Wendy rode alone on the bus, as usual, listening to her Walkman. Today, the CD was Sade. After Madonna, her favorite. Even though Sade sang a lot about having her heart broken by someone, and Wendy had never had that happen to her, it seemed to her Sade was the kind of person who would understand, even if she didn't fully understand it herself, how it was she could be feeling so confused and unhappy so much of the time, even as everyone around her thought things were going fine. All you had to do was look at Sade's beautiful, mysterious face to believe she knew what she was talking about,
when she sang about the King of Sorrow. Even the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?